wonderful to see you. I'm Karen Tucker, CEO of the Churchill Club, and our program tonight is called The Future of Commerce, How Will We Pay? We're privileged to have with us a diverse set of speakers who will share their personal opinions on this topic. Doug Bergeron, Bill Gajda, Bryan Lamkin, Mark Lavelle, Harshul Sanghi, and of course, our moderator, Martin Giles. Welcome, and thank you all for being here. Not only do we have a distinguished panel, but we also have an amazing audience, really a who's who of experts and deep thinkers in this topic area. We appreciate your presence and hope that you will participate in the Q&A. And I also want to thank our host and sponsor. Qualcomm is a San Diego-based company, and it was interesting to learn today that they actually have 1,700 employees here in the Bay Area, which is quite substantial, more than even, say, Electronic Arts has locally. And people here are really cool, especially Greg LeBeau, who personally made this event possible. So please help me thank Qualcomm. And my last special thank you goes to Victoria Brown of Zeno Group for help informing this program. Our next event is Wednesday, March 21st, as we present the CEO of Shell, Royal Dutch Shell, Peter Voser, in conversation with Forbes publisher Rich Karlgaard, and they will discuss one of the most important topics on our agenda this year, which is the future of energy, its trends, implications, and opportunities. This definitely affects all of us in myriad ways, and it's going to be an amazing experience to be there and to meet Voser. So I hope that you will please try to make it if you can. For those of you who are a little less familiar with us, Churchill Club is a not-for-profit organization with the mission to encourage economic growth and societal benefit. If you would like to get involved in our efforts, there are plenty of ways to do so. So please check it out at churchillclub.org. And my last announcement, if you are tweeting, please use hashtag Churchill Club, and you will find other Twitter codes in the printed program. Our moderator, Martin Giles, has worked all over the world for The Economist, not only as correspondent, but also on the commercial side to help grow the business. One of his many accomplishments for The Economist Group, he created a magazine that was directed at chief financial officers, which quickly surpassed 70,000 subscribers in large companies across the European Union. And for this, it won a Royal Award for Export Achievement, which was, in fact, presented by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II herself. As if being such an accomplished journalist isn't enough, rumor has it that Martin also dances a mean foxtrot.
Ooh, who told you that?
Please give our warmest welcome to Martin Giles.
Not my wife. Thank you, Karen. I am the Silicon Valley correspondent of The Economist, but I also used to be the newspaper's finance editor. So I have a really keen interest in the nexus of technology and money. And so I leapt at the opportunity to chair this panel. Karen, thank you very much for the invitation. One of the ironies of technology, it seems to me, is that it's actually easier to pay for, say, a taxi in Nairobi these days using your phone than it actually is to pay for a taxi in San Francisco if you can find one. And I think that's a reflection of the fact that conventional banking systems in Africa are pretty poor, and therefore you've had this sort of leapfrogging of technology that have taken place in places like Kenya. In Europe, where I come from, there are a lot of experiments taking place with fascinating new ways to pay, though you may have noticed that we Europeans have a slight challenge with a thing called the euro. I've suggested we should drop that name and rename it the loonie, along with Canada, because that's a pretty accurate description of the politics that goes on around the single currency in Europe. Here in America, we're still wedded to our plastic and to our Benjamins, but there are plenty of signs that changes are afoot. The multi-trillion-dollar question is, where are we heading next? And who's going to be determining how we pay, where we pay? in commerce in future. And to discuss that fascinating subject, I'm delighted to have a great group of panelists here with me. To my immediate left is Doug Bergeron, who's the CEO of VeriFone, whose secure electronic payment systems are used by all kinds of companies, from retailers to healthcare providers and petroleum firms. Doug's also sorting out taxis for me, so thanks very much for that, Doug. I appreciate your new system for that. Bill Gajda is the head of mobile product at Visa, who's immediately to Doug's left, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Bill oversees the firm's mobile product and commercial strategies and activities. To Bill's left is Bryan Lamkin, who's the boss of Clover. It's a venture-backed firm that's developing a one-tap mobile payment system for mobile e-commerce. Bryan was previously at Yahoo, where he was SVP of the company's consumer products division, and he was also at Adobe, so he's had a deep background in Silicon Valley. To Bryan's left is Mark Lavelle, who is VP of Strategy and Business Development at PayPal, which he joined in 2008 when it acquired Bill Me Later, where he was part of the senior management team. And before that, he was in banking at First USA and Bank One, and remarkably managed to get out before it all went pear-shaped. Congratulations, Mark. That was brilliant timing. Let me know when you leave next one, right? And then finally is Harshul Sanghi, who is managing partner of American Express Ventures, and it's the Enterprise Growth Group in there. Is that correct, Harshul? Yes. As responsible for broadening and strengthening AMEX's existing online and mobile products through partnerships with tech and venture firms. And prior to that, he worked at Motorola, so he knows the telecoms world pretty well as well. So we have a good spread of people on this panel. I thought I'd also use this event to do an impromptu pop quiz. See if you can spot the titles in my questions that have anything to do with money as we go through the session. You'll have ABBA, Springsteen, Steve Miller Band, Dire Straits, and Rush. So it's an unusual event. I'm from The Economist. We do unusual things, but I will make it very, very subtle. You will find it very hard to notice these questions. So we're going to start. Let's talk about money, money, money. It's always sunny in a payments world, isn't it, gentlemen? What are the big trends in commerce that are driving innovation in the field of payments? And where do we think we're going to see real change over the next 5 years? Bryan, would you like to kick that off? Take a stab at what are the big trends that...
Absolutely.
Why Clover and why now? Because what have you seen that's happening?
Sure. Yeah, I think that we're focused on a couple of trends that frankly laid the groundwork for the success of PayPal back at the end of the last decade, and that's the shift of commerce to online commerce. There's a lot of focus right now on local commerce and NFC and what's going to happen with the POS. The reality is that every year a higher percentage of commerce actually is shifting online. That, coupled with the fact that we're seeing traffic move pretty dramatically. Okay. I'll try to yell.
Is that good?
Oh, it's feedback on me. Maybe if I put that lower, is that better?
No, it's me.
Okay. Sorry. Higher. Okay.
Thank you.
I can do it without the mic too. So,
some other mic.
so you look at that overall trend. We saw 18% growth over the past year moving to e-commerce, and then you're seeing all of the traffic that shift into mobile and to tablets, smartphone and tablets. 10 to 15% now. That'll be 50% by the time we wake up, 4 or 5 years down the road. The transactions haven't followed, right? If you back out folks like Apple and Amazon, less than 2% of the transactions are actually happen on mobile devices. So clearly there's a lot of friction in the system. And our goal with Clover is actually to deal with a lot of that friction, remove that friction, and make it possible to do convenient payments and to drive revenue growth on mobile.
Got it. Bill, do you want to?
Yeah, I think building on that trend, I think he's right. We're seeing a few things, I think, at Visa that probably all the panelists share. I think one of them is that the electronification of commerce, as almost any other industry mobile is touched, is moving to mobile. We've seen data, entertainment, gaming, enterprise applications. There's an inevitability for commerce to move to mobile. But it's happening in different markets in different ways. In markets like the United States, where we're seeing ever-increasing smartphone penetration, it's really going to be about rich applications. It will be about e-commerce moving to the mobile device. It will be about tapping and paying using NFC. at the point of sale. But that's going to be part of a broader commerce experience. That's got to include more customer control, linking payment types and your pre, during, and post-shopping experience, linking your loyalty cards, really putting consumers in the kind of control using the benefits of mobile that are kind of time and location dependent, how personal that device is, and we've got to solve for all of that. So if we just solve for the transaction, whether it's on a website or the point of sale, we're not doing enough because there's much more potential for mobile than that.
Online, though, right? So a lot of people are still doing stuff online. They're not doing it on their mobile.
A little bit online, but
a little bit. 7 billion, I think. $7 billion worth.
You guys are still focused on that, right?
Well, we do $4 billion of business on mobile today, and we'll do over $7 billion this year, and just last year it was only 700 million. So the curve is literally through the roof. But I think there's a lot going on in innovation around payments, but the broader spectrum is payments sort of follows commerce. And the things that are going on in retail and the things that are going on between buying and selling, I think is what is going to drive a lot of where we as payment innovators find opportunities to serve our customers. And talking to a lot of our customers at PayPal and talking to a lot of retail, there's a transformation happening there that's being driven by just the internet being a part of our daily lives. And the competition that is being brought to them by a mobile-enabled customer, an internet-enabled customer that has perfect visibility into price, perfect visibility into inventory, and this thing called thumbs up, thumbs down that all their friends are suggesting where they should go and where they should buy, is going to fundamentally transform all of selling and how merchants connect with consumers going forward. And the interesting thing about that is payments actually is a good way, a good delivery mechanism to give information and tie the loop between somebody who is actually participating in this online. And we always think of online as somewhere off on our laptops in our kitchen and our desk. Really what we're doing is walking into the store. We're walking into our daily lives. We're sitting in our car, deciding when we're going to engage in our next commerce activity. And that's where the mobile phone thing, I think, comes in. Because unless retail, unless sellers are realizing that their buyers or potential buyers are engaged in information and discovery constantly, and how much that is influencing where they're going to go and what they're going to buy, they're not going to be successful in this new trend. So I think as we think of payment innovation, we think of the pressures that retailers are under, and that is following that where buyers have perfect information, are always on, always internet enabled, is where the future will lead us.
Doug, you have some insights into what retailers are doing and where they're thinking of taking their business models. How do you see the changing retail commercial landscape?
Well, I think it's more than just mobile. Obviously, we're a big player in mobile, but I think it's better said that it's about convergence of mobile.
I think you're going to have to speak up just a little bit.
It's about the convergence of mobile and physical point of sale. There's about $70 trillion in worldwide GDP. About 70% of GDP is consumer spending, so 50 trillion. About half of it around the world is cash, and about half of it is plastic. Obviously more than half here and much less than half in Asia. But you get about $25 trillion a year of electronic payments. We're processing about half of them. It's about $10 trillion, $12 trillion a year. Last year, mobile, or online payments, I should say, which mobile is a subset of, moved from 7% of consumer transactions to 8%, 8.5%. So we think this is a huge trend, but it can't be successful on its own. It has to be successful in convergence with how people are still buying stuff around the world.
Can I just make sure everyone's hearing okay at the back? Yeah, okay. Can we see if we can do... Yeah, maybe that's the way.
Is there a technologist?
Yeah, I shouldn't be the technology correspondent without...
Maybe we can just turn the refrigerators off and that would help.
I think it's the fridges.
Oh, it's
Okay. We'll try and make sure that we project our voices a little more. And that's why I want to move to Harshul, because I'm sure you can project really well, Harshul.
Sure I can. I'll do that. So, I don't know if you can hear me back there, but we'll try anyway.
That's not me.
Does this help?
Was that on?
It's not even on.
Oh, that's
okay,
good.
there you go.
That's good.
I'll hold it up here. That's all right. So I think we've, in terms of what your question was, what are the couple trends that we are seeing, as a future of commerce? I'd point out two specific ones. One is, it's the convergence of online, mobile, and offline. When you go in, when was the last time you guys bought a car on your phone? I don't think any one of you have bought it on your phone. Yeah, potentially you've done a lot of discovery when you looked at your car for, online. Hey, which car do I like? Where can I get a good price? What should the blue book value be? What's the dealer invoice price? What are all of those things? You probably did it on, oh, that's much better.
Bad side is there's no drinks for anybody for the rest of the evening.
Drinks for her.
There's a pub
From the chocolate milk.
Thank you. Wonderful.
I think the point is that we're using all of these different tools in different parts of the world, by the way, in differing ways. If you look at the commerce journey, there's a point of discovery, there's analysis, there's transaction, and then there's engagement in terms of loyalty and engagement after the transaction. The traditional way has been you go to a shop, you do a lot of window shopping, which all of our spouses and better halves are very fond of doing. You do some trial and error, do some negotiating over there at the store, and then you end up finding a deal, finding the best price, you negotiate it, and you transact and you come home. We're doing different parts of that, online, mobile, and even in person. I think last Christmas, a lot of us use the Amazon Price Check app when we're standing, when we're inside Best Buy and saying, hey, what's the price, what's the best deal, right? So now all of a sudden you moved analysis, and discovery to offline, but then we order it online at Amazon probably, right? So things are moving, and then we've done the vice versa as well. So that's kind of one thing where I think as that trend continues, what consumers really want is give me the best experience wherever I am and when it makes sense for me.
Got it.
The other big trend that I see is, that we see is really the convergence of, there's a social graph, and there's a lot of knowledge that's being gained in the social graph. I'm telling the world about, where I am, what I'm doing. I'm leaving a lot of breadcrumbs all over the place. I'm here today, I just tweeted about it, right? And then, of course, there's a lot of transaction history that, people know about me, and it's that mix of, both that will come together that will actually drive the future to provide, a differentiated experience. And the combination of that data, I think that's going to, be a trend that will create a seamless sort of experience for us.
Just a couple of points to amplify there. People actually do transactions on mobile. We had somebody buy a $45,000 diamond ring on mobile on eBay a while ago, and we sell a huge amount of automobiles. So the trust factor of buying on a mobile phone on devices is increasing. And the other thing I think, Harshul, you brought up is the experience of buying in a store, but not from the store. And that is a very major trend that I think retailers and all sellers and all merchants have to realize, that we sit in front of retailers all the time and say, we're preparing for a world when in 3 to 5 years, most of the sellable SKUs in your store will actually be shippable same day, that afternoon. It won't be an overnight or 3 days. They'll be able to look at it, buy it. It will be in your apartment by that evening. And that fundamentally is going to change the way retailers have to think about people coming in with information. You have to have the ability to serve up an offer and the ability to buy your item while they're in their store the way they want to buy it. And so retailers who are getting this are realizing that mobile commerce and full functioning mobile applications are a way that they can actually attach that buyer, know that they're walking into the store, and be able to have them walk out with their product or have their product shipped from their warehouse instead of one of their competitors. Because the biggest issue they have is that they don't know who their customers are. And the online sellers and the mobile sellers know who the customer is, what their buying patterns are, but to the physical retailer, it's anonymous. And that's where mobile can help them.
We'll get Bill and Doug. Yeah.
But I think mobile can help that both in an online and an offline way. So when we take a look at NFC as an example, which I think we're finally starting to see take off after some false starts over the past 5 years. Whoa.
I didn't think you were on.
Voice of God.
You are.
The voice of NFC.
Exactly right.
The voice of Visa.
Yeah.
has spoken.
NFC interference.
Yeah. So while
Radio.
we're seeing it take off, one of the things we are seeing take off in addition, to the rollout of devices and acceptance devices, et cetera, is innovation around NFC. The ability to have an NFC reader when someone enters a store, so those merchants, you can register, so merchants do understand when you enter the store as opposed to only understanding you're there as you leave. There's apps being developed that are tied to social networking, as you mentioned, where you can walk into a restaurant, tap your device, and it loads your Facebook page to say you're at that restaurant. When you leave, you tap it 1 to 5 times, and it rates the restaurant and updates your Facebook page. And so I think when we think about NFC as an example, we've got to think about it as part of a broader commerce experience. It certainly enables a transaction in a very secure and seamless way, but it's going to be used for much more than just enabling that transaction. And part of it will be retailers discovering their customers, delivering offers, and having a much different experience.
And just in case anyone here doesn't know what NFC is, it's near-field communication, which is kind of chip that's in a phone that allows you to just wave it over a payments.
But ultimately, it
VeriFone
all has to add up to revenue growing, right? And right now, online revenue is growing at twice the rate of local revenue. So it seems like there's a huge amount of energy there.
Right.
But when's it going to add up? When's it going to add up to, we talk about loyalty, we can talk about everything, but when's it going to add up to retailers are growing their revenue?
Right.
And they're growing it locally.
When is it going to add up?
Well, it's taking place, but there's a real world out there. Out of the top 1,000 national retailers, we run payment systems for about 70% of them. Of the top 200, we run 163 of them. And here's what they're saying to us. We want to play. We want to take advantage of this. We want to grow revenue. We want to know our customers, all these things. But we need some sanity. We can't turn our point-of-sale infrastructure into a research lab for 15 people throwing their hands into it. Right. They need an adult in the room to govern it, to make sure that the PayPal app doesn't clobber the Google app, and that Visa still works, and that V.me works as well as M.me or whatever the hell they're calling it.
There's no M.me.
There is no
Yes, there is. I registered it yesterday. It's my patent.
They're also saying we just spent millions of dollars on security, on PCI compliance. We're about to spend another big load of money on EMV compliance and smart card chip technology. So all of this stuff better be secure, or I'm not going to play. So I kind of represent innovation, but innovation in a way that works. Remember, retail runs at 10 to 12% operating margins. They don't have Visa's 60% margins. They don't have Google's 60% margins. They don't have our 25% margins. These guys are in a constrained environment, and they want to play, but they can only play in a very deliberate way.
And I think that's some great points there. What about looking at it from the consumer's point of view? It is confusing. It's a very confusing field out there. There are things like the price comparison app, which shows you immediate benefits. But I think a lot of people, a lot of material girls out there in the material world who are looking to sort of buy stuff, they're confused about what they should use and what about the risks around the payment systems that are emerging. So how secure is my mobile? What about privacy on this? I trust Visa. I trust PayPal because I sort of know them. I trust AMEX. Sorry, didn't want to leave you out, Harshul. But what about all these new models coming out? And maybe even okay, can we scrap that from the record, please? Yeah. How secure is this stuff? And how legitimate are consumers' concerns about this? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
You should.
Okay.
You're the new guy.
I think the opportunity, I was supposed to be the troublemaker, and you told me that everyone else was getting along.
I said they were all getting on really well, so you should be the troublemaker.
And I think that we're fundamentally convinced at Clover that the smartphone and the tablet have all the characteristics of being highly secure platforms if you develop the right system on top of it, right? So if you're letting people come in with username and password that they can come in and take over an account, that's not secure. But the perception out there is that the computer at home and the desktop is actually more secure than the smartphone. So if you actually use the characteristics, you use the fact that everyone has a unique phone and a unique phone number, and you can do mutual SSL, and you can really lock that down, then this has the opportunity to be a very, very secure environment.
Yeah. I think if you want to get controversial, it's I don't think any of us in this room are really going to want to have our financial information in our phone. There's a secure element. Apparently, there's a couple of secure elements on the phone. A few, right? Some of them you can plug in and off. Some of them you can't. We don't think of having our financial information on our laptop either. We do have banking relationships, and we have stock relationships and mortgages, and we have these things stored with companies that we trust. So I think the fundamental question of how you can get to your financial information so that you can transact in a frictionless way, whether it's online, whether it's offline, whether it's mobile, which really doesn't matter to a consumer. When you're making a transaction, you're not thinking, oh, this is an online transaction. You're saying, I finally found what I wanted, I'm going to get it. What you want to be able to do is securely and effortlessly access your money in a way that lets you walk out of that store or close that transaction. So I think fundamentally we'll have a wallet in the cloud secured by a credential, an identity, and that identity you can take to your iPad, to your laptop, to the store down the street, or to your mobile phone. And you will be confident in that identity that you're not actually sharing all of your financial details with you. You're not giving every merchant or vendor that information. And I think that is where this will take off, because ultimately, if we're talking about the future of payment, we're all pretty well versed at pulling out and swiping, right? And the future mobile payment can't just compete with a swipe. You can't turn a swipe into a tap and say we're done. You have to fundamentally change the value proposition to consumers. And to get the ecosystem to work with you, you have to deliver something else other than just payment reconciliation.
Doug.
Listen, I think that's absolutely true. The first time that somebody hacks into PayPal's system and raids a whole bunch of bank accounts, because a lot of PayPal users direct transactions to ACH, all the confidence is going to be lost in a lot of the stuff that we're doing. So I think security has taken a back seat. We've continued to be real strong advocates of belts and suspenders around everything, because I think it drives consumer confidence, which will drive consumer adoption. And if there's a setback, I think it's going to set all of us back.
Yeah, that being,
I'll have a quick response, because I think that was a direct attack.
Doug, security is absolutely table stakes. The responsibility of all of us on this panel, everybody in the industry. There is no advantage to anybody having a better security. We all have to protect the payment system. But I tell you, all of us in this room have probably have their identities fallen off the back of a truck and a tape that got taken by somebody, or your credit card hacked multiple times over the last couple. Just do a Google search on the number of times companies have had to notify consumers that their credit card information has been hacked. I don't think that's necessarily dented or critically wounded our confidence in the ability to use Visa. Yet Visa cards get lost and stolen and hacked all the time. It's not a good thing. It's something we all have to fight against. But the ability for a company to protect financial information between its customers will dictate whether or not those customers choose to do business with you.
Harshul, you were going to say something?
American Express is a brand that's been around for more than 100 years, and it's built on security and trust and privacy, and that relationship that's been built with the consumer. And that's of the utmost importance to us. We believe that we've done some the sort of link like love experiment on Facebook, where consumers are opting in and telling us what they like. And on Facebook, we just did the recent announcement with Twitter, where you can tweet what you like, and they're opting in and telling us those things. Those are all examples of where consumers are now telling you information. They're leaving these breadcrumbs all over. They're telling you where they are. We do a Foursquare check-in, and millions of our customers have redeemed real money using that our sort of check-in with Foursquare. However, it's on an opt-in basis,
Right.
and we still protect that information and trust, and that's very key.
Got it.
However, you can use the combination of what they're publishing, what's out there on Facebook, what's out there on all of these in the public knowledge that I'm self-publishing, and combine that with the transaction history and the knowledge that I already have about you to offer a much richer experience to you. And I think that's really where we'll head to.
But you, very quickly, yeah?
Well, just quickly, I think that there's no doubt that for any of these new payment technologies around mobile to take off, there's the trust model, right? And that's going to be all about brand and us living up to our expectations. But it's also going to be about some consumer education in terms of how these things are used. But if you think about, and we take a look at what's happening in e-commerce, people's increasing ability to put all of their payment details, addresses, ship to, bill to, onto many, many websites or onto the next mobile application, they're going to put those credentials or trust a Visa or a trusted services manager or whoever, their bank, to put those credentials onto a mobile device if it creates that new commerce experience for them. We call it a secure element for a reason.
I get a kick out of opt-in. I mean, it's 3 pages of fine print, and you say, I agree. Whoever says, I don't agree. Everybody says, I agree. And the fact is, I think even more tantamount than security is privacy. We talk about aggregating all of this data about all of our transactions and where we're going in this whole social map. It feels to me, and maybe it's because I'm older than some of the guys on our team, but it feels to me like we're setting ourselves up for ankle bracelet technology. We're going to be, always in, always on, always visible, and it's a little scary.
In what so ankle bracelet in the sense that we're going to be tracked everywhere,
Yeah.
and we do well, it's called Google. I mean, there's already lots of tracking going on. It's like and Facebook and everybody else, but didn't mean to pick on Google.
Can I be a little contrarian on this, actually?
Yes,
I mean,
you can.
I started off speaking on behalf of security, but there was a lot of talk in the early days of PayPal about, this new thing is not going to be secure, and they managed to build a pretty nice little business that's going to exceed MasterCard with very nice margins. I'm quite envious, actually. So I think convenience and actually enabling something that you couldn't do before trumps security. The question is, what are we delivering on the smartphone that actually makes consumers want to come and use this thing? Right. Where is the convenience? Where is the delight?
I think it's a very good question. I'm not sure it trumps security, because I think we're all concerned most of all about money and security. But it's the hygiene factor.
Yeah.
But you put your finger on a really interesting question, and it's the sort of chicken and egg question that payment systems are. I mean, I've been writing a story for the last 5 years that says every year, and my editors remind me of this, here comes mobile. This is the year when the entire payments universe is going to change. And then I talk to retailers, and they go, no. Because what's in it for me? By the way, all of this money that I get charged, if you can bring down these fees, these wonderful merchant fees and other things that you charge me, then I might think that you're the one, you're the person I want to put my arms around and hug at checkout. But if you don't do that, that's not interesting to me. Where's the big save for me? Imagine I'm Walmart. Convince me.
Oh, you picked a tough one there, Walmart. anything up from zeros.
Okay, Safeway.
Well, the cost is certainly an important element to sellers and retailers, but I'd contend that they're in a much dire situation if they are, in a lot of cases you're just getting e-commerce figured out, and suddenly mobile commerce takes off, and then you've got to go figure out what Foursquare is and Facebook and social and what like means and doesn't mean. And so what retailers and sellers really need is the ability to compete in the information and digital age and understand that their customers and prospective customers are spending most of their time now in a digital world, sharing information, liking and unliking things, showing intent to make purchases that have to be picked up or else somebody else is going to pick up that signal and close that sale. So the old ways you used to get customers are now thrown out, and you need to be able to participate in this area. When you start talking about that, you start less talking about 1 basis point plus or minus. And I think that's where mobile, the concept of the future of payments, continues to lead us, is that it has to be more value add to the buyer, to the customer.
Right.
Right? Because I agree, security is table stakes, but convenience, making them feel empowered, saving them time, making them enjoy their money more.
I think that's absolutely right. There's no such thing as money for nothing.
Yeah.
But
Less control than they've ever had over the consumer, right?
Right.
And mobile is one of the key technologies enabling it. I mean, 30 years ago, storefront windows, retailers far apart, you went into the shop, you never left, you were a price taker.
Right.
All of that's thrown out the window with mobile now. Right? And increasingly, as these phones get smarter and applications get richer and consumers get smarter, we're going to see consumers in control more than ever before. And so it's really going to be about merchants. We talk about consumer delight. They don't have a choice anymore. That's going to become table stakes. And mobile is a channel that can work against them if they get it wrong, and can be really powerful if they get it right. But you're going to have to solve the consumer issue.
So to build on that, what's your favorite mobile payment app, Martin?
my favorite mobile payment app, it's not a triangle, it's the other one. But it could be a triangle soon.
No.
We'll come to
So
that
my
in a minute.
favorite mobile
That's an
payment app is
interesting
actually
segue, Martin.
Chipotle, right? Chipotle.
I
'cause
thought you
can
say
sit at my-
Starbucks.
I can sit at my desk, I can fill out my order, and I can save 15 minutes, because when I get there and I don't have to stand in line, I go up and I pick up my order. So
Right.
it's the integration of that level
Right.
of facility in the application, and
Yes.
it's not just about payments, it's about taking time out of the whole process, right?
Got it.
That's what we need to be doing here.
I think that's absolutely, that's the ka-ching moment. Doug, do you have a sort of view on what it's going to take? I mean, you see a lot of consumer data, a lot of consumer behavior at VeriFone. What do you think is going to make consumers really rush to adopt a particular solution?
I mean, ultimately, if NFC is the communication modality, we're going to have to get phones with NFC in them. I think there's only Nexus 1 from Samsung that has it right now, and half of them that were sold to Google employees. So other than that, when we talk to major retailers, all those customers I talked about making investments in upgrading for NFC, running the PayPal app, running the Google app, running the ISIS app, they go home that night and they ask their teenagers, do you have NFC on your phone? And no, and then they call their friends and nobody has it. So I think the chicken and the egg thing is real important, but I think if the handset makers get NFC on the phones as they promise, largely by the end of next year, then the natural kind of life cycle of a smartphone, which is about 18 months, suggests that by sometime in late 2013, we could have a tipping point where consumers can talk to the point of sale. Then retailers should be motivated to enjoy some of the value creation that these guys have talked about. But
That's good. So late 13, I get you to talk to my editor, and he'll actually let me write the story again.
I ask my teenagers about NFC, and they just say NFW.
Okay, moving on swiftly.
Sorry.
There are a lot of players in this field, some of whom are on this panel with me. And when I look at it, it's extremely sort of busy and confusing. There are phone companies and banks and credit card companies and startups like Clover. There are the traditional card players. There's PayPal. There's VeriFone plays a big role in this. And then there's Google, which we weren't picking on Google, so that's a positive for Google. All credit to them for trying with the wallet. There's Square, there's Facebook with Facebook credits. I mean, is that going to become a payments mechanism? It's just really confusing. Yeah. Who is going to get the big money in this?
Well, first of all, thank goodness, right? I mean, payments is critically important to the economy. It's critically important to all of our lives. And I personally have been in the business for over 15 years. I just don't think there's been enough innovation in payments, and it's actually wonderful to see all of the energy going into enabling new commerce experiences with new payment experiences. Because at the end of the day, I mean, when credit cards was invented, it invented a whole new era of consumerism and invented a whole new era of retail. And I think we're in an inflection point now where what we're talking about here on the stage is going to create a whole new era of commerce, retail, and inflection point for consumerism. And probably more importantly,
I think we just lost you. Did we just lose you? You came back.
In other parts of the world, where we will leapfrog some of the infrastructure issues that the same way technology in telecom has been leapfrogged in developing parts of the world. The same way my 4 daughters will never have a landline or a passbook savings account. That there's going to be a leapfrog in money over the next 5 years that I think will be very compelling because of what we're seeing today.
We'll build in
I think there's, it's a great time to be in commerce. It's a great time to be in payments because there's a lot of the innovation that's taking place. However, at the end of the day, I mean, guys, let's be realistic. If you talk about credit, if you talk about moving your cash globally, in a ubiquitous manner with a consistent user experience, there are only 3.5 networks in the world that do that. All right. I think 2 of them are on this table. A lot of the money that our Mark here moves and makes is on our rails. I mean, we're bigger online. I think we moved over $100 billion online last year. So I think you're going to have you have to have a ubiquitous experience globally. I think you have to we talk about mobile phones, but we're in Silicon Valley. It's a different country here, guys. Each one of us here has a smartphone. But, when we go to China, you go to India, you go to Africa, even in Europe, not everybody has a smartphone. You can't really have all of these things that we're talking about, show your phone and pay with it. However, we've got a dumbed-down piece of plastic, but guess what? It works every single part of the world, every single time, right? So I think it's an evolution. It's not a revolution. I think we'll get there. I think it'll be different in different parts of the world. And certainly agree with you, Mark, about the leapfrog. I think we announced a partnership in China where you are leapfrogging, going straight from cash to online and mobile, but at point of sale and offline. So it's different in different geographies.
Bill, you want to?
Yeah, well, I think I'll agree with these points. That I think the rails are going to be important, and the ecosystem that's been created, I think, is the foundation for the discussion we're having. But the innovation we're seeing are on the edges of those rails. That is really exciting. And whether it's what you guys announced today, or Square, or iZettle, or what Intuit are doing, bringing whole new categories of merchants into the ecosystem and electronify payments, that's convenient for them, and they're realizing as they make that transition that the cost of cash isn't free, that cash is expensive, and the opportunity cost is really expensive. But we're also very active in emerging markets where the vast majority of people are unbanked, have never made an electronic payment. And for them, it's not convenience. It's going to change GDP, right? It's social transformation. And so, you made the point when you started that in markets like Kenya, Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, we're watching these leapfrog technologies, and that's going to continue. I mean, it's transformative in those markets. It's interesting in this market.
Yeah.
It's transformative in those markets.
But money changes everything. But I think you got retailers. I mean, here what we're talking about isn't really about who owns the customer and who owns the data at the end of the day. And, there was a report in the Wall Street Journal recently that said that retailers around America have looked at all these new emerging systems and said, actually, you know what? We don't like any. We should have our own, because guess what? We'd like to have that data. I mean, they didn't say that, but that's the underlying, isn't it? I mean, isn't this a battle for who owns the data, who owns the customer?
Well, fortunately, we already own the data.
Yeah. And you're not going to give it away.
And customers trust us with it. That's the good news. But you're right, it is about the data, and it's not about just owning the data. So what if you own the data? It's what you do with it, right? What are the insights that you're able to glean with it, and what are the experience you're able to bring? What is the benefit you're bringing the consumer or the merchant, with that data, right? And that's what it's about. I mean, today there's lots of brands of credit cards. There's lots of brands of loyalty cards. I mean, a credit card is a wallet as well today. We have a cloud-based wallet as well. But it's really about, what are the insights that you're gleaning from all of that data? I mean, everybody can own data. The retailer does own a lot of data today as well, by the way, but it's what they're doing with it, right? And they're using it for different pieces. It's the combination of all of this structured and unstructured data, and when we can bring that together in a better mashup and a better value proposition for the customer, I think that's the brand, that's the, that's who's going to win. And it's not a zero-sum game, by the way. You know,
I was just going to. Right.
That's the other piece. Right?
Doug, how do you see this from the retailers' perspective? You deal with them a lot. And
Yeah, I mean, the big retailers, the top 1,000, they're not stupid. They know that they've got a real asset there in terms of their data, and they're not just going to hand it over to Google and we'll play with it. I mean, they want to somehow monetize it, drive some of the value that they're talking about. And then there's small retailers whose data in an atomic sense is meaningless, but if aggregated at an SKU level, by the way, most of the card networks claim to have data, but they really have transaction data. They know where you were and what store you went and what purchase amount you made, but they don't really what you bought. They can make some inferences about what you bought. The real holy grail on data is SKU, and if you could know what people bought when, where, at a per item level, get that aggregated in real time. Then when you're checking out of a retailer, you can be getting an offer from a guy that if you bought boots, you can be getting an offer from the guy next door that's selling belts, you know, telling you to drop in. We're still a long way from that, but I think that's the goal.
Anybody else want to add anything to that? No? Okay, good. We've talked a bit about abroad and lessons from abroad, but can we explore that a little bit more? I mean, is there a sort of game plan somewhere, a master sort of strategy that you can see that's been applied in another market? I mean, are there lessons from places like Japan or from Korea or from Europe, elsewhere, that might apply and help sort of map out how things are going to evolve here? Or is America unique and special, which I think it is, obviously, but I don't know how it looks from
I think we need to watch what's going to happen in Singapore. They're basically going to turn on NFC nationally for Singapore, about 6 million people, overnight in June because they can. And it's a highly developed market, high smartphone penetration. They're going to be trying point of sale plus all these value-added features. So I think we're going to be able to watch Singapore in the latter half of this year. I think markets like Canada, close by, and Australia are probably a bit farther ahead. I think we're watching Japan switch out from Filica, their private system, to NFC and start to drive some cross-border stuff with Korea that we're watching very closely. And so I think that the U.S. is going to be able to watch some interesting experiments across different markets and different use cases. We won't lead, right, because there's a whole ecosystem that needs to be solved here, right, with a lot of complexity. But we'll be fast followers, and I think that we'll watch what happens in some markets over the next 12 months.
Right. Harsh?
Yeah, I think, it's, when we think of the U.S., we think of it, very homogeneous. We think it's one country. Just telling you an example of, go to New York and you tell the cab driver, where you're coming from, and he says, well, 6 hours west is San Francisco, but 6 hours east is Frankfurt in a different country, right? So I don't think it's sort of homogeneous. I mean, I think you have, even in this country, a lot of the unbanked, underbanked. In this country, we're launching products like prepaid cards that address that, and that's a wallet that you can even withdraw cash at the ATM. We've done that reloadable card at Target. That's an example of that. But then, and then you have the other demographic of the millennials who are online and mobile. And I think they're leading the charge, and they're probably very similar to, so-called sort of millennials or teenagers in China or in India, for example. They're all using smartphones. Whereas you have, other people who don't have a bank account in cash economies in India and China. So you've got these different experiences, and I think there's a lot of learnings to be had across these, but in different segments, different pockets, different demographics.
Right.
And certainly, that's how we look at the world. We look at it, on a global basis and capture those learnings and products that we can, mix and match across the globe.
It's a world of opportunity for innovation. I travel in Tokyo, a sophisticated city like Tokyo. I'm amazed how much time you need cash. That they don't take credit cards. It's just mind-boggling. You go to the UK, a place like London. I'm amazed at how long I have to wait for the chip and pin to process my card. It's like time stands still, like we've gone back in time.
We like queuing, we like queuing. It's national pastime.
And then you go study the middle class in India, and the upper class, and you realize they have multiple bank accounts, and they're moving money from things all the time. It's just fascinating. So each area represents Very fascinating payment innovation opportunity.
I mean, I think Singapore will be really interesting because it will be the first time, but that's has a rather unusual form of government, which I know some presidential candidates here in the United States might quite like to institute. But and probably just got us banned again by making that statement. But I do think it is interesting when you look at how fast Africa and M-Pesa, that experience has moved, and it's interesting because I think for America, I mean, the Federal Reserve just came out with a report that said actually phone banking could bring into the financial system millions of Americans who are currently excluded from it. And if that happens, as it's happening in Africa, that will be massive for this country as well. So it's some interesting things to follow.
And what's interesting is the cost of commerce for the people that are unbanked is much higher than the cost of commerce for the people that are fully banked.
Yes.
The guy that's making $20 a week in rural India somehow has to get that money back to his family, and he works 3 days away by mass transit or by buses from his family. The average friction between the times that somebody gets mugged or the times that the money gets lost or the amount of money they have to pay these people that carry money for them works out to be 15 or 20%. I mean, that's just on a moral basis, that's not really right.
Money's too tight to mention in places like that. It really is. Okay, now we're going on to our last question. Thank you. At least somebody got that. Looking into your crystal balls, let's look a little bit further ahead. A bit further. Let's look along. Let's say 2020. Okay, or maybe 2050. Now let's look really far out. We've actually just produced a book that's the world in 2050, looking at exactly what the global economy might look like then. So I'd love to know, what do you think payments is going to look like? Are we still going to be using credit cards?
Is that 2050? Or
2050. Let's go 2050. Let's out to 2050. Yeah, starting in 2050. I wish it was. Let's look out. I mean, what kinds of mega trends are there going to be in payments? I mean, will there still be an AMEX? Will there still be a Visa? Will there? What
Listen,
kinds of?
I'll chime in first. I definitely think AMEX being a 162-year-old company, I think 35 years is a very short time span, and will be here 35 years from now. I also do think 35 years from now it'll continue to remain a trusted brand. 35 years back, when I look at it in my life, I used American Express to travel with the traveler's checks. I used it to book travel. So it is a part of my life then. It will continue to be a part of my life and experience, in 2015, I think, for a lot of our customers and more. But if you just want to throw some wild stuff out there, I think, if 35 years ago, which is what 2050 is today, 35 years from today, I told you that you'll be checking your mail every minute, right? And by the way, it'll only show up every 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the phone you use or the network you use. All right, you'd be saying, I'm totally stupid, right? Are you kidding me? All right, so in 35 years, a lot can change. But I do think, maybe it's be some simple things where I'll look you in the eye, I'll shake your hand, and the transaction will pass through. And, and you know what? The technologies for that actually exist today with the retina recognition and the fingerprint sensing. So it's not that outrageous to think that can happen.
It's absolutely
We're doing the Vulcan
But
cash.
just to be transparent, throw something out there. I have no idea whether it'll happen, but 2050 is a long way off.
The Vulcan cash, I'm very taken with that. I'll make sure that comes into my next article. But maybe Clover, what can we see in terms of trust? I mean, because you made that, I think it's a really important point. I mean, it's trust, right?
It is trust.
Because it's money.
Exactly.
It's money and health are the things we care about. Trust. Where else might we trust beyond where we trust today? I mean, I'm going to throw in here people like the Apples of this world, who will no doubt come out with an iWallet at some stage later this year, which will have NFC, which is going to have 250 million iTunes customers getting their monthly statements in it, no doubt. There are brands and there are new players, there are new forms emerging. Could we have the Apple Bank or the Clover Bank or the Clover?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought you might say that. Where else might we get disruptors from?
But I think it's going to be really cool, first of all. It's going to be a fabulous place to live 35 years from now. And it's going to be funny to tell stories about, when Grandpa used to carry around this leather thing that had all these pieces of plastic in it. And Grandma had this purse filled with paper and coupons and things like that. And because ultimately in that world, and I think it's probably going to happen faster than we realize, the concepts of identity and currency will merge and actually just become part of the fabric of our lives. And they won't become separate things that if we did not bring them with us physically, that they would not be with us. And we will be introduced to things virtually. People will know us, and it will all be within our control. We'll certainly have to work out all the privacy issues along the way. But I think it'll be a world that is frictionless, fun, and has a lot more control on the consumer side for how they deal with their.
That's great.
When you say smartphone, it'll sound like you said horseless buggy. I don't think your grandkids or great-grandkids will ask, well, when were phones ever done? And by the way, why do you still call it a phone, right?
That's true.
It's a different
It's
one.
like taping a show.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it'll be just really big C commerce because it's, like you said, it's money today, but it's going to be your health payments, it's going to be your identity, it's going to be the way you travel. It'll all be the same thing, right? Because it's just, that's other forms of commerce, right? And it'll be big C commerce by then.
Doug?
I think 38 years from now will certainly be after the shakeout of all these small payments companies. I mean,
Yes!
No,
I was glad you said
they'll be in their Z round funding. They'll be
no, I mean, if you think it's
I
chaotic,
didn't realize you're so hostile to that.
Very disrespectful.
I think there's room for everybody.
Money can't buy you love, you know that. Money can't buy you love.
I absolutely agree.
Good, thank you all. I'd like to take questions from the floor. We have some, there's one over there, we have some microphones coming. If you could just wait till the microphone's there, announce yourself and the question. One here.
Yes, my name is Raj Jain. I'm CEO of Aris Software, company which is focused on electronic payments. And thanks very much to the panel. Fascinating conversation. But, you know, taking the cue from 2050 and coming down south towards much closer where we are, looking at the next 36 months. So 2015 maybe. So my question is two-part. One is, the unanimity seems to be that it's really eventually the customer experience which will facilitate which form factor will really get to be dominant. Given that premise, so my first part of the question is it going to be commerce on the tablet a lot more dominant versus commerce on the mobile phones? Purely because on the tablet, little larger screen, yet mobile enough, and you can see a better enhanced experience?
Yep.
That's first part of the question.
Got that one.
Second part of the question is it going to be a platform on the smart card that the EMV gets adopted in the US as well, and therefore cards remaining to be dominant versus commerce on tablet or smartphones?
So tablet, smartphones, card, smart card.
All of the above.
All of the above, says Doug. Dominant.
I think all of the above is the right answer.
Yeah.
With respect to smart cards, the whole world, ex the U.S., Sub-Saharan Africa, and rural India has already either adopted EMV or is in the process of adopting EMV. Visa last September and MasterCard earlier this month not only got behind it, but already put deadlines of, coincidentally, 2015, which there'll be a ladder of liability reductions for retailers that adopt it. So there's no question that chip technology is coming to America. We see, I won't make this an advertisement either, but we see a phenomenal growth of our business around tablets. What we're seeing is large retailers, the Gap, for instance, feels, and I think Mark alluded to this earlier, feel in one respect totally disadvantaged to the Amazons of the world with respect to logistics. So they want to be able to go to a consumer in the aisle and say, listen, you came in to spend $800 on a size, not the Gap, Jimmy Choo, you came in to spend $800 on a size 8 red ladies pump. I've got that model, that style that you want in blue, try it on, check that size 8 works, but the red one that you really want, I can get it shipped to your home today. Kaboom, press it in the aisle. And therefore they can leverage the customer experience that in a way that Amazon can't, because they've got that customer in their reach. They can sell them other things in a way that it's harder for Amazon. Amazon obviously can do some of that. And they can take advantage of consolidated distribution mechanisms like Amazon can. So we see tablets playing a huge role in retail. and for the retailers and obviously for the consumer as
The
well.
only thing I'd add to that is I wouldn't count out the big screen. Remember the internet was supposed to kill television? I'm predicting in the time period you're talking about, we're going to be buying a lot more things in the 10-foot experience than we are today. There'll be a revolution there.
Yeah, I just want to, he kind of made the point, but we talk about the customer experience, and it will absolutely drive, I think, kind of what's successful and not successful, and I think all of the above is the right answer. But I want to make a plug for standards. I come from the mobile industry, and what we can't forget is there's a lot of innovation going on, but the growth of the ecosystem is going to count to some degree on standards and certainty. I was in the mobile industry when, in the United States, we had for many years the debate between GSM and CDMA, and it was a technology debate mostly. It was CDMA propagates better, it cell divides better, in building.
Office, by the way.
Right, but it doesn't matter, right? GSM became dominant not because it was a better technology, but because it was a global standard with more innovators around it, more producers, more devices, right? More distribution, a global ecosystem. We don't even talk about CDMA anymore. And so you have to, at some point, understand innovation is really important. If you're a merchant, if you're a customer, if you're a payment network, standards and certainty, dead ends don't work very long, right?
Great, thank you. Next question, please.
Yeah, Ellington Smith, Network Data Security, and I wanted to address a couple things. Actually, I'd like to challenge all of you because I think to some extent all of your companies are sandbagging on technology and also from a standards point of view. VeriFone in Bangladesh and Africa, the infrastructure can actually circumvent the need for point-of-sale terminal using point-to-point settlement with cell phone, using smart debit credit vouchers that also handle customer relationships and awards and gift cards. The other thing is with your certificate on cell phones for mobile commerce, the spyware is so sophisticated right now that it works the same for tablets as it does for cell phones, and you can monitor and duplicate the certificates. The other thing is I look at the near field contact as more of a gadget than a solver of a problem, because the real issue is to be able to conduct a powerful, smart voucher that is totally secure inside the cell phone, where each transaction is unique to its own.
Thank you. So basically, you're irrelevant, and someone's going to take the money and run. How do we deal with this question? Because it's a good one. Thank you. Doug, do you want to go first? You're going to be cut out.
I think you have to go back to basics. I think the way people check out is going to change, but there's an aggregation event, there's an accounting event, there's a customer experience event, and if I'm a retailer of any magnitude, I want to know what's going on in my store. And at the end of the day, if somebody comes to return something, I want to have a record of them coming out of that store. So I think our value proposition, even in places like Bangladesh and India, will change over the years, but I think there's still an extremely relevant place for us to be. And to your comment on standardization, that's the role, frankly, we played 30 years ago. You know, we didn't end up with a checkout line for Visa and a checkout line for debit and a checkout line for American Express. What we did is we formed groups which ended up forming standards, and Visa took a lot of the lead in standards as well. And all of the types of existing forms of payment worked cohesively together. And I think that's going to happen, but it's going to be messy until we get there.
And I think that's exactly right. I think all of the things you talked about are possible, and we're enabling some of them. But let's be honest. There's 2.2 billion Visa cards today in force. It's still growing rapidly. And if you take a look at all the payment brands, more than 3 billion cards and growing rapidly. And so the point of sale and the kind of standards and the one terminal at a point of sale, it's still important. It's going to be important for a long time while we sort all of this stuff out.
What about the security part of the question? And how secure is all this going to be? Someone going to come along and skim my phone much more easily than they can walk off with my credit card?
I mean, I think we're fundamentally convinced that phones are inherently more secure than computers, right?
Absolutely right.
And if you build the right systems on top of them, you can have a very robust very convenient platform for payments that is highly secure. So
I think that's right.
you need to exploit them the right way, and you need to take advantage of the right technologies to do so.
And I guess if you lose them, which I do regularly, they can be remotely wiped and all that kind of thing. And I seem to remember, as the CIO of Starbucks said, the thing about phones is that people work out within 5 minutes if they've lost one, whereas the wallets, it usually takes on average like 40 minutes to an hour.
And you're not storing that information unencrypted on the phone.
Thank you. It was a great question. Next question, please.
Yeah, hi. My name is Murgesh Navar. I'm the CEO of a company called BuyFi. If you go to Boston Bruins, Boston Celtics games, or the New York Giants or the New York Jets game this fall, you'll be able to purchase concession and merchandise using a mobile phone. That's what we do. We also work with Jack in the Box. Now, those are all big retailers, right? We got that nailed. You start looking at the smaller retailers, not the top 1,000, the rest of the smaller ones. Who's the technology advisor? How is this all going to come together? Because the point-of-sale vendor is the closest technology advisor there is to them. It's just interested in your perspective on how do you bring all these small merchants on board? How do you educate them? How do you get them to get started?
I'll take that. I mean, AMEX, we're a big proponent of small businesses. In fact, we were one of the co-founders of Small Business Saturday, which is 2 days after Thanksgiving. And, it was a huge success where, people did go and, transact locally at their local store. They redeemed a lot of money. They promoted a lot of business. And by the way, we've been a trusted advisor. We have millions of merchants worldwide who are our customers. And we're a trusted advisor to them. We help them with their business. We help them bring new customers to them. We help them with, marketing analysis. We've been helping them go, online with, in terms of how do you do social marketing? How do you do online marketing? How do you create online storefronts? We've been helping these merchants, and being a trusted advisor, that's one of the big sort of value propositions that we bring to the table, is being that trusted advisor. We continue, we hope to continue to do that. We hope to continue to grow that into, more merchants, a much more broader coverage. So, yeah, we look at that as a key piece of what we bring to the table.
I think it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue for the American economy, the health of the small business. It's a massive issue for the developing economies across the world. And eBay Inc. has had a business of enabling small businesses online and actually providing them with scale infrastructure to participate in commerce. And the biggest thing is connecting them to consumers and allowing them to access the payment network, which a lot of them have difficulties doing because it's so complex, and providing them the trust imprimatur of a brand like PayPal that says, you can trust me to buy your products and services. I think we have to go deeper into that. We have to provide them with the fulfillment and logistics. They have to be able to participate in global commerce. They have to be able to find, even though they're a small seller in Denver, they got to find the buyer in Brazil. And and we think that eBay, we're going to be one of the companies that really help facilitate those small, medium-sized merchants to succeed.
Great. Great question. Thank you. Shame about your choice of football teams. 49ers are so much better. But anyway. Next question, please. Over here at the back.
Chip Fishburne with Qualcomm. First of all, Martin, really great job as a moderator tonight. It's not an easy job, and you did a really great job keeping the panel engaged. So I think we ought to all give Martin a good hand.
Lousy taste in music, though.
All right, now that we got that out of the way, you touched on a couple of points tonight that I think candidly are part of which is holding mobile payments back. One is who owns the data, and the second is you didn't call it interchange, but you touched on it. And so I'd like to get the panel's reaction, whoever will volunteer, on this thing we're hearing about a retail consortium, maybe. So I'll leave it at that.
Doug, you know the retailers well, so what's going on with this retail consortium? Is it real?
Listen, it's no dirty secret that big retail and companies like PayPal pay I was going to say shitload, but I won't say shitload. Pay
a large amount.
A large amount of money to the card networks. It's also not a fair comment when they don't ascribe value to that. Now, what is the fair value? I don't know. I think in the U.S. is paying higher interchange rates than the rest of the world. I think companies like Visa and American Express are busy evolving their business models because they can see 100 feet in front of them. They know that in the future, in an EMV world with with the government where the government is today, there'll be pressure on interchange, but I think they're going to do just fine. Retailers get a lot of benefit from electronic payments. People buy more things easily, and what's the fair price? I don't know, but it's
and this is probably a very common misconception, but Visa helps set interchange for the payments industry. Most of that money goes to the banks, and there's an underlying reason why. It's because they take the risk on the credit, right? So we have to talk about the fair value about transacting that payment, and that's what Visa does, a payment network, and it's a few basis points on a transaction. Most of the money does go to the bank, and it's really tied to the financial institution that underlies the risk of providing you that financial instrument on the one hand, and enables that merchant to have a near frictionless payment on the other. And we're going to continue to talk about interchange and what's card present, card not present, card near present as these technologies emerge, and we'll solve it. But there's still a ton of value in providing these global payment networks, whether you're an issuer or a merchant.
Next question, please. Thank you. It was a great question.
Hi.
Sorry. Here? Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ritu. I'm advising a couple of e-commerce and internet e-commerce companies. And my question is about, you mentioned that a lot of control is passing into the hands of the consumer going forward. As you see the emerging technologies that are emerging right now, retailers were squeezed previously, so now the retailers have a lifesaver in the form of mobile payments. So between retailers, Amazon, eBay, who do you see emerging as, do you see a resurgence of retailers? And if so, how does it make sense for them to be cautious? Because what other option do they have? In terms of, as you mentioned, the technologies available. So do they have an option but to adopt the new technologies going forward? And then the second part of the question was really about anonymous versus non-anonymous payments. Where do you see customer preferences lying going forward, like open loop versus closed loop?
So basically, does anybody have a choice here? Is this a democratic process, or basically retailers going to get whatever is given to them? And secondly, can you be anonymous versus having to hand over all your data when you pay? Is there some kind of Bitcoin world? I guess is that the question? Sort of Bitcoin.
Technologies, which ones do you see emerging as being more dominant? Like PayPal was semi-anonymous.
Okay.
PayPal was semi-anonymous. There are other more anonymous. Obviously, with the credit card, you're stating your identity right there.
Okay.
Well, I think there's a lot of regulation in terms of KYC and all of that. So I think that's
KYC.
Just,
know your customer.
Know your customer.
Good one. Just checking.
I
thought it might be a new payments mechanism.
It's not a new chip.
It's not a new chip. Okay. Good. Okay.
I think the regulatory environment in different countries will shake that part out. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think that's
okay.
I think the part of your question about retail versus Amazon, I think if we all think we're going to be shopping at Amazon and Walmart next 10 years, that might not be a great world to live in. I think that retailers and merchants have a great opportunity to participate in new retail, in new commerce. They are going to have to do things differently. They're going to have to leverage their geographic footprint better, because they're not going to build distribution warehouses all over the world. They are going to have to leverage their technology at point of sale and their register better. They're going to have to use it to know who their customers are and to be able to greet them and to be able to have them leave with something and know when they have an intention to buy their product again. And they are going to have to participate and go out actively looking for customers where their customers are, which is no longer in Sunday offer circulars or classified ads or TV programs. They're going to be on social environments, on e-commerce environments, and on mobile phones. And I think eBay represents a partnership with retail against a world where they would otherwise not be able to make the capital and R&D investment to participate in the digital global commerce world.
Okay. Thank you. Where is my next question? Down over here.
Yes, so Vibhor Rastogi with Intel Capital. I guess a question for all the panelists. Can you perhaps speak to your platform strategy? So, for example, Visa has CyberSource, PayPal has X.com, VeriFone probably has a strategy around opening up the POS system for developers. So what are your guys' strategies for incubating innovation around your platforms? You know, you have a very competitively differentiated position. How are you letting the ecosystem benefit, and then you obviously benefit from that as well?
Doug?
Oh, we've been open for years. We actively encourage developers of gift cards, loyalty cards, you name it. There's hundreds of age identification for liquor stores to write applications to the VeriFone platform and then instantly be able to have access to 70% of American retail and 50% worldwide. So that's the no secret of our strategy for many years.
Doug? Sorry.
I'll give you our platform strategy in less than a minute. So we're going to license the PayWave application, which enables NFC as openly as we can to allow our issuers to decide on how they want to engage on various or with various mobile players regarding NFC. We bought Fundamo, which is an emerging market wallet provider, and we're going to be working to with mobile operators who've launched closed-loop systems to provide open-loop connectivity to VisaNet and provide new transaction types and better services to the unbanked and emerging markets using that platform. We work with a company called Monetize to work in markets like India, where we have a lot of cards that aren't being used that you can virtualize on a mobile device and make everyday transactions like top up your mobile phone, send peer-to-peer payments, pay utility bills, buy transit and theater tickets. And so we see it as kind of, there's really three platforms. There's one for markets like this. There's one for emerging markets. There's some what we call hybrid markets, and we're going to have basically an open platform that's going to drive the value of our network.
PayPal?
Might take a little longer, but we've got.
I don't have a platform.
We have
Wait a minute here, Mark.
I'm saving the best till last.
Okay.
Heaven's sake.
Go ahead, please. We opened up our platform several years ago to developers. We have over 1 million developers now. We get something on order of 500 applications written to that platform every month, and it's escalating. We are seeing tremendous innovation, so much so that we opened it up to all commerce. So not only, it started as a payment platform, it now involves shopping carts, it involves invoicing, it involves tax, it involves fulfillment. We are doing cross-border applications with a hosted commerce solution in several parts of the world.
Where are the biggest opportunities? I mean, if people out here are thinking of starting a company and they're looking at where should they go on your platform?
I'd become an X.commerce certified developer, and you would get the most advanced tools and support. And maybe the biggest thing you get, not only advanced modern applications that are related to payment, but you get demand generation to one of the largest marketplaces in the world,
right?
eBay.
Okay. And Harshul, you'll back them, right? You'll finance them.
Sure. Well, we launched our cloud-based wallet called Serve last year, and if you look at what we've announced with Twitter, Facebook, and Foursquare, that all uses our Sync API that we have. So obviously, we're launching with a few select partners at this point, but over time, we have a developer outreach program that we're going to launch APIs that we will be able to, tap into our platform, which is we're unique in the sense that we've got the network. We're a card issuer as well as a merchant acquirer, so they'll be able to tap into it, drive innovation on top of it, and that's really why we're here. That's why we opened up an office here in Silicon Valley, is to tap into all of that innovation and be a part of it to lead that.
And last but not least, the recently large fundraising sort of round from Clover.
We're taking advantage of everything these guys are doing, but we're very focused on one thing, and that's commerce is moving online, and it's moving to mobile, and we need to take the friction out of that. So we're delivering an application that is downloadable, and it serves as a gateway to both mobile web experiences and to application experiences, but it's generalized. It's like the performance of the Apple App Store, but it's generalized, and all merchants and developers can take advantage of it to deliver under 5-second checkout We have more downloads than American Express served in 3 months, and so we're out of the gates quite hard. Harshul, I look forward to talking to you more about that.
We haven't announced it, so I don't know how you know that, but never
mind.
You heard it here first.
Unless
You'll be in The Economist next week,
We're
it's true.
fundamentally convinced that when we wake up 5 years from now, about a quarter of commerce will be online.
Right.
A large part of that will be mobile. To answer the gentleman's question here, we think most of that will be on the smartphone. We think tablet is early out of the gates because people don't have to optimize their sites, right? When you optimize the experience for the consumer, when you deliver the delight and you let them check out at the speed of light, you're going to actually see commerce light up on the smartphone. That's
Right.
what Clover's about.
Okay, thank you, guys. Next question. Time for 2 more. Yes, in the center.
Hi, like George Riley, GFR Consulting Group. I'd like to thank all the panelists tonight. And I want to pick up on a theme about security and the network and the rails. And just full disclosure, I was part of the engineering team as a consultant that rolled out the mobile WAP browser mobile banking app at Bank of America. Actually, it was 5 years ago this month. And a lot of the folks at Bank of America and banking will tell you that was probably the start of the whole revolution with mobile. And we also rolled out the first downloadable iPhone app actually in November of '07 before there was an iTunes store. And before that, I was at Verizon Wireless.
It's a CV.
Right. I was at Verizon. Well,
You're looking for a job.
No, actually, what I'm doing is you can't throw one past me.
No, it's valid credentials.
I'm kind of snowproof, and so before I was at Verizon Wireless, where we worked on the local number portability, which remember the cell phone companies at one time thought it was to your advantage not to be able to.
I think I've seen your
move
LinkedIn
phone.
profile.
Probably. So the question, and talking about standards and the rails, seems to be there's a disconnect. The disconnect is there's a lot of jazzy stuff going on at the edges and things like that. But as you mentioned, security is only going to happen without the participation of the 800-pound elephants that are not in the room tonight, specifically AT&T and Verizon. And I can tell you, as somebody who spent 5 years in this business now, we've created an app for mobile devices which is more secure by a factor of X than your home computer. But we can't get it deployed or funding because the carriers are not going to pick up all of that inherent information which is in that tablet, that iPhone, and transport it across the network. So Mr. Visa, Mr. PayPal, Mr. AMEX, I'm not really going to trust your network if today you can't tell me that connection that's coming to your website, you really don't have visibility as to whether did it start out on the cellular network and then get switched at their gateway to come in as a Wi-Fi thing. So until we get the carriers involved, that's going to be a problem. So the specific question is, are you guys banging the carriers over the head? Because remember, it's the regulated monopoly industry. You've got to bang them over the head, get them in the room and say, let's all work together on getting these standards updated so we can really then secure this network. And then this mobile thing will take off. So what are you guys doing with the carriers?
Who wants to take that one?
Well, we're part of ISIS, which is a a carrier initiative for the mobile wallet. So we've announced that.
And AT&T and Verizon are in that, right?
We've also announced
their solution.
a partnership with Verizon for Bill My Phone partnership. Using our cloud-based wallet again. So that's something that we're working directly with Verizon on, and other carriers as well.
Anybody else want to say anything about the carrier?
We've got a good relationship with carriers. We do carrier billing through offer that to our digital goods retailers through the service. I think we operate a cloud-based wallet. We won't put people's financial information on the phone, and we won't send your credit card or bank credentials back to the phone or allow it to be embedded in the phone. It's a password credential protected wallet in the cloud that doesn't share that information and doesn't require it to be stored in places like cell phones or computers or tablets. So I think we have very, very sophisticated and proven capabilities in fraud and security, developed through some of the harshest environments in the world to understand buyer and seller and transaction risk, and we're very, very confident that our customers' ability to access their mobile wallet through a tablet, through a mobile phone, through a PIN pad, or even through a television is secure.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is that we think both things are going to happen. So we have a v.me wallet to create this frictionless checkout that we're launching. And again, we're going to use aliasing and tokens to make sure that those credentials aren't passed over the network. And I think we all approach security in terms of this this cloud-based security the same way. When you put your credentials on a device with NFC, they are hardened. But whether you tap that phone or tap a plastic card, it's the same payment transaction. So you're not changing the way a payment's made from physical plastic or a phone in terms of the way that transaction is handled on the various networks. I mean, the thing that we have to understand, and we have close relationships with the mobile operators and participate in ISIS, et cetera, is they have a role to play, I think, in the distribution. They subsidize these devices heavily, which is why we're seeing the battle over the secure element in the United States and why Verizon thinks it can turn off the Google Wallet on devices it subsidizes. We're going to have to watch that battle play out in markets where subsidies are as high as they are, like the United States. But you can't discount the role the mobile operators have in terms of their marketing budgets, their brand, their distribution, and ultimately their control over the configuration of that device. So you can't ignore them, and we're going to find the right way to play with them.
Great question. Thank you for bringing other 800-pound gorillas into the room. Last question. If you make it reasonably brief, please.
Okay. So my name is Gagan Mehra. I lead the commerce practice for Deloitte Consulting. My question is, we talked a lot about the consumer space. How do you see the future of payments playing out in the B2B space?
B2B space.
I mean, the B2B space is a big part of commerce. We are enabling a lot of that today. In fact, I'll give you an example of, in the US itself, of course, we're doing a lot of that over credit and other mechanisms. But if you look at, what we just announced in China, that's actually pretty unique, where a consumer comes into a point of sale with cash and then actually uses our cloud-based wallet, where the point of sale retailer goes online on the computer there in the store and actually does a B2B transaction for, either booking travel, topping up mobile minutes, or, any other purchasing movie tickets and the like. So that's actually a combination of, B2B, where it's, and consumer, but at a point of sale. So you're going to see this, definitely B2B is a huge piece of it. A lot of money is moved there. And there is a lot of friction, and there's a lot of opportunity there to grow and make it frictionless and monetize.
No, we're done. Yeah. Okay, we're done. The Lady Gaga money honey here tells me it is time to stop. Ladies and gentlemen, please would you thank my panelists who have done a terrific job. Really, really very good. And as my favorite economist, P. Diddy, says, it's all about the Benjamins. And I have walked the line very finely this evening, and that's not a musical one, but it was written by Johnny Cash, so, it's close. Okay, thank you all very much. Karen.
Now it comes the time, it's the ceremonial presentation of the T-shirt to thank our panelists tonight for their appearance. Thank you so much. Also want to thank Qualcomm, and you have been a wonderful audience. Thank you for coming, and good night.